Hello, it's Willie from the Ozarks, and it is April the 13th, and we're ready for lesson 103 in A Course in Miracles Workbook for Students. 103, I share God's will for happiness for me. I share God's will for happiness for me. That's a nice thing to share, isn't it? Okay. I share God's will for happiness for me. That's actually today's lesson, or yesterday's lesson. I'm recording this at the night before, so today's lesson is 103. God being love is also happiness. Continuation of 102, which we're going to talk about in just a minute. But 103, God being love is also happiness. God being love is also happiness. Lesson 102, since we already started talking about it, I share God's will. Think about it, God's will. You're sharing it. You're sharing God's will for what? Happiness for you. Happiness for me. Happiness for everybody. Okay, I share God's will for happiness for me, and I accept it as my function now. Okay, remember we talked about how that when you tell yourself to be happy, and then remind yourself of why it's a good idea to be happy, because that's your function given you by God. It's the one you want. It's the one you gave yourself as in that part of you that's connected with God. All right. I share God's will for happiness for me. I share God's will for happiness for me. One other thing I'd like to think about on that. After you say that, I share God's will for happiness for me and I accept it as my function now. Did you get a sense? It says, then seek this function deep within your mind, for it is there awaiting but your choice. Did you get it? Did you get a sense of the feeling of this happiness that's just a choice away? A choice of cherishing a grievance or cherishing no grievance. Be happy or not. It's always the leading of the Spirit that you fulfill your function, which is to be happy always. You cannot fail to find it when you learn it is your choice and that you share God's will. Okay? So hopefully you came to that. If not, pause once more now and go spend 5 minutes and let that settle in. Before we get ready to read lesson 103, God being love is also happiness, I didn't tell you something. I got to talking about my teacher, Charlie, and he told me about everbearing and June bearing. He said your June bearing will generally produce more berries in the year, but your everbearings maybe not produce as much, but they're all through the summer. Well, I've always grown Ozark Beauty, and that's what these are. And I've got a little place that I'm going to put a few more on. And I already pulled this off. I wonder if I could do it without hurting anything. I think I'll just do it this way and make a mess. Anyway, I want to show you something. When I get ready to plant this thing, it's already got a flower on it. And I had bees swarm today too. There's 3 more buds underneath here if you can see them. And this section right here is the crown. That's the part you want to make sure you get if you're harvesting like in the winter time. I think I maybe got too far over here. But anyway, excuse me. Anyway, you want that crown, and I'm getting dirt all over the place. But, I don't know. I just like without the plastic. Someday we'll have recyclable plastics, I guess, that'll be environmentally sound. But we're not so much there yet, so we want to minimize use. I had to show you this too. I showed these heritage. Anyway, what I wanted to tell you was that what my teacher Charlie told me. He was also a teacher for me in gardening as well as metaphysics and Kriya Yoga. Like I said, I'll be eternally grateful to him and his wife who taught me and my children's mother, Diane, these lessons, many of them. Anyway, of the Ozark beauties that are a little. And I had a friend of mine say, "Boy, you used to have those things growing in your front yard. They're always so sweet." He told me he ate them every time he come over here to work. And it was right during the time when thought I was going to have a whole bunch, and I find out probably been 10 years ago that I kept thinking, "Oh, how about I never get any berries off these? Everybody else has been eating them." I'm just realizing that I probably produce way more than I ever thought I was producing. I just don't get the joy of eating them. Look at these raspberries. These are the ones I showed you when I got them, and I've been watering them. I opened them up and watered them, but it's just bare root, and they're in it looks to me like some sort of fiber, shredded something that's holding water, But here, look at that, another raspberry. Isn't that pretty neat? I just thought it was pretty neat that they're already producing and they're healthy and happy, and I haven't even got them in the dirt. Now that pretty much danger of frost's over, we're going to remedy that, and I planted a whole bunch more potatoes today, and I'm trying to get these things not to fall off. Okay, anyway, I got potatoes today, planted more. It's a little late, but I planted them back about, you like to plant about the middle of March, and I planted them, but I just had to plant them in a temporary place. But so I had to pick them out real easy because they had big long roots, and that little tuber that goes up breaks off easy. Paragraph 11 in Hebrews, before we go on and read 103, is we are ready for paragraph 3. At the end, not paragraph 3, verse 3 in Hebrews 11, we're going through this. Just briefly, don't think that this is an in-depth study of Hebrews by any means. I just wanted to point out some really endearing concepts through this, okay? So keep that in mind as we read. You could study it way deeper than what I'm trying, but I can share with some things that's been encouraging to me. That's what I wanted to do in honor of my friend Jean's crossing. And it says that in that last sentence, it said that by faith, let me just read it again. By faith, we understand that the universe was created by the word of God, so that what is seen was not made out of things that are visible. By faith, Abel offered to God a more acceptable sacrifice than Cain, through which he was commended as righteous, God commending him by accepting his gifts. And through his faith, though he died, he still speaks. See, we still take encouragement from the memory of the way our beloved brother Gene lived his life. And that inspires us to do likewise. He lived by faith. He now still speaks as we just think of him. And that's just one of many ways that he still speaks. And we appreciate, and we know he can hear too, and we appreciate you, Gene. Thank you for being a good example of what a Christian man is. Do I want to go further? We talked a little bit, and through his faith, though he died, he still speaks. That was the point I wanted to make about Abel and all the people of faith, and even you will be speaking after you cross this and leave this world. So let's be sure that we're doing everything we can to have a nice word go out from us for eternity. It happens automatically, but as we have faith, we have really reason to be thought of, because that's what this world's a place to come to do, is to learn to live by faith. That's its purpose. But purpose is to be happy, but that's how you get there, is see by faith, realize that what's going on here has got to be some kind of illusion, because God still is love, and this is not his will. Remember that one yesterday? All right. So, what else? Is there anything else before we read our lesson? Okay, let's read our lesson. God being love is also happiness. Happiness is an attribute of love. It cannot be apart from it, nor can it be experienced where love is not. Love has no limits, being everywhere, and therefore joy is everywhere as well. Yet can the mind deny that this is so, believing there are gaps in love where sin can enter, bringing pain instead of joy? Well, you may want to read that one again. Paragraph 2, this strange belief would limit happiness by redefining love as limited and introducing opposition in what has no limit and no opposite. Fear is associated then with love, and its results become the heritage of minds that think that what they have made is real. These images, with no reality and truth, bear witness to the fear of God. Forgetting being love, he must be joy. Yeah. Can you even imagine? Of course you can't. Or I shouldn't say can you imagine. You can imagine anything, I suppose. But that's probably good. But you wouldn't really want to imagine love without joy is really probably the better way to say it. Because to me, love and joy are part of the same thing, along with peace. All right, so these images with no reality and truth bear witness to the fear of God. Forgetting being love, he must be joy. This strange belief. What is the strange belief? We're going to read it again. We're going to have to. God being love is also happiness. Happiness is an attribute of love. It cannot be apart from it, nor can it be experienced where love is not. Love has no limits, being everywhere, and therefore joy is everywhere as well. Love is everywhere, just like joy is everywhere. Yet can the mind deny that this is so, believing there are gaps in love where sin can enter, bringing pain instead of joy, okay? What takes the joy away? The belief in sin, guilt, separation from source to be able to make something that could hurt you. It can only be done in a dream. It can't be done in reality. That's why you can say God still is love and this is not his will. All right? This strange belief would limit happiness by redefining love as limited and introducing opposition in what has no limit and no opposite. Fear is associated then with love, and its results become the heritage of minds that think what they have made is real. These images, with no reality in truth, bear witness to the fear of God. Forgetting being love, he must be joy. That's a sad place to be. But I think most of us have been there or are there, This basic error we will try again to bring to truth today and teach ourselves. God being love is also happiness. God being love is also happiness. To fear him is to be afraid of joy. Wow, what? To fear God is to be afraid of joy. God being love is also happiness. To fear him is to be afraid of joy. Begin your periods of practicing today with this association. Okay, God, joy. To fear God is to be away from joy, to be afraid of joy. Well, we don't want to do that. God being love is also happiness. We're learning this real stuff. I mean, Jesus has taken us on this, what I'm calling it's if you sit in a cave and meditated long enough, you would have seen these things. They're that obvious. He's just saying, hey, think about this. I'm going to put it in a language that you can understand. You've already used the words Son of God and Father and atonement. And I'm going to just use them now and tell you what they all mean. From my perspective, what does forgiveness mean? Not from man's perspective or from but from Jesus' perspective. And he's written this beautiful manuscript about how to meditate in and find these things and go, oh yeah, that'd be obvious. Truth demonstrates itself because it's reasonable. It's obvious, okay? So God being love is also happiness. To fear him is to be afraid of joy. Begin your periods of practicing today with this association. which corrects the false belief that God is fear. It also emphasizes happiness belongs to you because of what He is. Happiness belongs to me because of what God is. I like that. That means I can make a mistake, but I don't think God's going to make one. So happiness is still going to be mine, even when I don't feel like it's mine for some reason, because I believe in the, you can't escape from the belief of whatever you believe. You're going to be bound by those rules, those laws. So if you believe that there is a judgmental, vindictive Father, then you're going to experience that's a shaking in the boots until you realize that your Father loves you. What father doesn't love his son and daughter? Begin your periods of practicing today with this association, which corrects the false belief that God is fear. It also emphasizes happiness belongs to you because of what He is. Paragraph 6, allow this one correction to be placed within your mind each waking hour today. Then welcome all the happiness it brings as truth replaces fear, and joy becomes what you expect to take the place of pain. Isn't this so nice that we don't have to go through pain to reach joy? That we trust the Holy Spirit and He brings us to our full potential of happiness by not ever having to attack. We don't have to make any attacks on anyone or anything or ourselves. No attacks and no pain. Isn't this amazing? So we learn to expect joy instead of pain. God being love, it will be given you. Okay, let's read that again. Allow this one correction to be placed within your mind each waking hour today. God being love is also happiness. To fear Him is to be afraid of joy. Then welcome all the happiness it brings as truth replaces fear and joy becomes what you expect to take the place of pain. God being love, it will be given you. Bolster this expectation frequently throughout the day. Live it up. Know that it's coming and more of it. And be ready to see the humor of the universe. Okay, that's going to be our freedom. We're going to all start being really pleased with being able to see our growth and what we're going through and what everyone's going through, and be so pleased with that it makes us chuckle. It makes us feel good. It makes us we're so glad of what we're seeing. All right. Bolster this expectation frequently throughout the day, and quiet all your fears with this assurance, kind and wholly true. God being love is also happiness, and it is happiness I seek today. I cannot fail because I seek the truth. Rest into that. God being love is also happiness, and it is happiness I seek today. I cannot fail because I seek the truth. And you can be sure that'll be on my card. All right, lesson 103, God being love is also happiness. Be sure to take 5 every hour today. God being love is also happiness.